Your Majesty, we are deeply honored by your reception.
We are pleased to welcome you to our court, Ambassador.
Stop everything, because what I'm about to show you is the most absolute demonstration of human power in European history. And here's the shocking part. It wasn't achieved through military conquest or religious authority. It was created through pure, overwhelming magnificence. Picture this. It's 1682. While other European kings rule from medieval castles or modest palaces, Louis XIV of France has just moved his entire government to the most spectacular architectural achievement in human history. Versailles. Not just a palace, a complete city designed to prove that one human being possesses power so absolute, so unlimited, so godlike that he can transform wilderness into paradise through pure royal will. But here's what's going to blow your mind. Versailles isn't just the most beautiful building complex ever created. It's the most sophisticated political weapon ever deployed. Every room, every garden, every architectural detail is designed to psychologically overwhelm visitors with French power and Louis XIV's divine authority. Kings, emperors, and nobles from across Europe arrive at Versailles expecting to conduct normal diplomatic business. Instead, they find themselves in an architectural theater where every element proves their own inferiority to French magnificence. This is the story of how one man transformed the entire concept of royal power by proving that absolute authority can create beauty beyond human imagination. How Louis XIV didn't just rule France, he redefined what it means to be a king, what it means to wield power, and what it means to dominate European civilization through cultural achievement. But there's something else about Louis XIV's power that's going to shock you. He achieved European dominance not by conquering other kingdoms, but by making other kingdoms desperately want to imitate French culture, French fashion, French language, and French political methods. By 1685, European nobility speaks French instead of their native languages, follows French fashion instead of local customs, and adopts French court ceremonies instead of traditional practices. Louis XIV has conquered European culture without firing a shot. This is absolute power perfected, authority so complete that submission becomes voluntary, dominance so attractive that resistance becomes psychologically impossible. The impossible vision. Let me take you back to the moment this architectural miracle began. 1661. 23-year-old Louis XIV stands in the marshland and forests of Versailles with the most ambitious construction plan in human history. Transform this wilderness into a palace complex that proves royal power can achieve anything. Picture what Louis faces. Versailles, in 1661, is literally nothing. Swampland, hunting forests, and a small medieval castle that wouldn't impress minor nobility. No natural advantages, no existing infrastructure, no logical reason to build anything significant here. But that's exactly why Louis chooses Versailles, because building magnificence from nothing proves power that transcends natural limitations. Anyone can renovate existing palaces. Only divine authority can create paradise from wilderness. Louis's vision exceeds anything European architecture has ever attempted. A palace complex larger than most European cities, formal gardens extending beyond visual horizons, fountains requiring engineering marvels, interior decorations using materials imported from throughout the world. But here's what makes Louis's plan truly revolutionary. Versailles isn't designed for royal comfort or practical government function. It's designed as political theater that will force every visitor to acknowledge French superiority through direct architectural experience. Every foreign diplomat who enters Versailles must walk through galleries designed to overwhelm their senses with French artistic achievement. Every European noble who attends court ceremonies must participate in rituals that demonstrate their subordination to French cultural standards. Versailles becomes a machine for generating political submission through aesthetic experience. By 1665, Louis has assembled the most talented architectural team in European history. Jules Hardouin Mansart for architectural design, André Lenotre for garden landscaping, Charles Lebrun for interior decoration. Thousands of craftsmen, artists and laborers working in perfect coordination. Most importantly, unlimited royal funding that makes artistic vision practically unlimited. Louis commits the entire resources of Europe's wealthiest kingdom to proving that French power can create beauty exceeding anything achieved by previous civilizations. The architectural miracle. By 1670, Versailles construction is creating architectural innovations that revolutionize European design and establish new standards for royal magnificence that other kingdoms can never match. Picture the scope of construction. The main palace, stretching over 700 meters, longer than most European city walls, over 2,000 rooms, including the famous Hall of Mirrors, with 17 mirror-lined arches reflecting light from gardens through floor-to-ceiling windows. But Versailles achieves something more profound than impressive size. Perfect integration of architecture, decoration, and landscape design that creates total aesthetic environment unlike anything in European experience. The palace gardens 800 hectares of formal landscaping with geometric precision that demonstrates French ability to control nature itself. Fountains requiring hydraulic engineering that brings water from miles away, creating water displays that operate like mechanical theater. Interior decoration. Every surface covered with artistic elements that combine French craftsmanship with materials from throughout the world. Marble from Italian quarries, silk from Chinese production, gold from American colonies, artistic techniques from European masters working exclusively for French glory. But here's what makes Versailles truly extraordinary: architectural unity that makes the entire complex function as single artistic statement rather than collection of individual buildings. Walking through Versailles means experiencing constantly changing but harmoniously related visual environments. Formal reception rooms that emphasize royal authority, private apartments that demonstrate royal taste, ceremonial halls that accommodate court rituals, garden vistas that extend royal control over natural landscape. This isn't just decoration. It's environmental psychology designed to make French power feel natural, inevitable, and divinely ordained through direct sensory experience. By 1675, foreign visitors consistently report that Versailles exceeds their capacity to describe its magnificence in their native languages. French architectural achievement has transcended normal human experience to become something approaching divine revelation, the court culture revolution. But Louis XIV's masterstroke isn't architectural magnificence. It's using Versailles as the setting for court culture that transforms European nobility from potential political threats into decorative participants in French cultural dominance. Picture court life at Versailles in 1680. 10,000 nobles, courtiers, servants and officials living permanently in the palace complex, participating in daily ceremonies that reinforce Louis XIV's absolute authority through ritualized social interaction. The lever and coucher. Louis XIV's daily rising and retiring ceremonies, where France's highest nobility compete for the honor of attending the king's most private moments. Court presentation rituals that determine social hierarchy through proximity to royal presence. But here's what makes Versailles court culture revolutionary. It transforms political power into cultural performance that makes resistance to royal authority culturally impossible. French nobility who once possessed independent political authority now depend on court favor for social status. Regional power holders who once ruled their own territories now compete for royal attention through fashion, artistic patronage, and cultural sophistication. Most brilliantly, Louis XIV makes court participation so expensive that nobles exhaust their wealth trying to maintain appropriate appearance, making rebellion financially impossible, even if they could overcome cultural addiction to court life. Versailles court culture becomes a machine for converting political independence into voluntary submission through cultural attraction and social pressure. By 1680, European nobility from throughout the continent are traveling to Versailles to learn French court customs, adopt French fashion, and master French cultural standards that are becoming requirements for international social acceptance. Louis XIV has achieved something unprecedented, making French culture so attractive that other European powers voluntarily adopt French political methods, French artistic standards, and French social organization. The king who seemed to rule only France is actually ruling European civilization through cultural imperialism that makes military conquest unnecessary. The European political dominance. By 1685, Louis XIV's Versailles-based court culture has created French political dominance throughout Europe that exceeds anything achieved by military conquest or dynastic marriage. Picture the European transformation. Courts from Madrid to St. Petersburg are reconstructed according to Versailles architectural principles. European nobles speak French as their diplomatic language. European fashion follows French design. European ceremonies imitate French court rituals. But French cultural dominance creates political influence that reshapes international relations. European kingdoms compete for French diplomatic favor, seek French military alliance, and adopt French administrative methods that prove more effective than traditional governmental systems. Louis XIV's political genius. Instead of conquering other kingdoms and ruling them directly, he makes other kingdoms want to become more like France voluntarily, creating political influence without administrative responsibility. Spanish court ceremonies now follow French protocols. German principalities redesign their palaces according to Versailles models. Italian city-states adopt French diplomatic procedures. English nobles study French fashion and court manners. Most remarkably, European wars are increasingly fought not over territory or dynastic claims, but over which powers will receive French diplomatic support and cultural recognition. The War of the Spanish Succession, the War of the League of Augsburg, various German conflicts, all fundamentally concerned with containing or supporting French cultural and political expansion that operates through voluntary adoption rather than military occupation. By 1685, French has become the international diplomatic language because European courts want to demonstrate cultural sophistication through French fluency. French artistic standards determine international aesthetic values because European nobility want to prove their cultural refinement through French appreciation. Louis XIV rules European culture and therefore European politics without needing to rule European territory. The economic empire. But Louis XIV's cultural dominance creates economic advantages that make France the wealthiest and most economically sophisticated kingdom in Europe through luxury production and international trade relationships. By 1690, Versailles has generated entire industries. French fashion houses producing clothing for European nobility, French furniture makers creating pieces for international royal customers, French artists receiving commissions from throughout Europe, French architects designing buildings from Russia to Spain. Picture the economic transformation. Every European court that imitates Versailles must purchase French luxury goods, hire French craftsmen, and adopt French economic methods. French cultural dominance creates guaranteed international market for French production. But the economic impact extends beyond luxury industries to fundamental financial and administrative innovations that make French government more efficient than any European alternative. Jean-Baptiste Colbert's economic policies, manufacturing development, international trade expansion, colonial empire construction, financial system, modernization that funds both Versailles magnificence and European military campaigns. French economic model proves that royal magnificence and practical prosperity can reinforce each other. Cultural investment creates international demand. International demand generates revenue. Revenue funds continued cultural investment that maintains international dominance. By 1690, other European kingdoms are adopting French economic methods because French prosperity exceeds their own achievement, despite Louis XIV's enormous expenditure on cultural projects that seem economically wasteful. French economic success demonstrates that cultural investment creates political advantages that generate economic returns exceeding the original cultural costs. Versailles pays for itself through international influence that creates business opportunities, diplomatic advantages, and economic relationships impossible to achieve through traditional military or commercial methods. The military projection, but Louis XIV's ultimate achievement, is demonstrating that cultural dominance creates military advantages more effective than traditional warfare through international cooperation and voluntary alliance formation. By 1690, French military forces are fighting throughout Europe, not primarily to conquer territory, but to defend French cultural influence against coalitions, trying to contain French civilizational dominance. Picture the strategic transformation. European powers form military alliances, not to defeat French armies, but to prevent French cultural expansion that threatens their political independence through voluntary adoption rather than military occupation. The League of Augsburg, England, Austria, Netherlands, Spain, and smaller powers uniting against Louis XIV because French cultural influence is converting their own nobility to French political methods and undermining traditional governmental systems. But here's what makes these anti-French coalitions ultimately ineffective. Even while fighting French military forces, European powers are adopting French military organization, French tactical innovations, and French administrative methods because French systems work better than their traditional alternatives. Louis XIV's military genius, making French military methods so effective that enemy armies improve their own capability by copying French techniques, inadvertently advancing French cultural influence through military imitation. French military engineering, artillery tactics, officer training, and logistical organization become international standards that spread French influence even through military opposition to French political goals. By 1695, European warfare is conducted according to French military principles by armies organized according to French administrative methods, led by officers trained in French tactical doctrine, using weapons produced according to French technological innovations. Louis XIV dominates European military culture while fighting European military coalitions, achieving strategic victory through cultural influence that transcends immediate military outcomes. The cultural imperialism peak. By 1700, Louis XIV has achieved something unprecedented in European history: voluntary cultural empire, where European civilization adopts French standards without French political control, creating influence more extensive than any traditional military conquest. Picture European cultural transformation. French language becomes the international language of diplomacy, science, philosophy, and high culture. European literature, music, theater, and visual arts follow French artistic standards. European social organization imitates French court culture and administrative methods. But French cultural empire extends beyond European boundaries to global influence through French colonial expansion, missionary activities, and international trade relationships that spread French cultural methods worldwide. French colonial empire in North America, Caribbean, Indian Ocean, and other regions creates global network, spreading French language, legal systems, architectural styles, and cultural practices that will influence world development for centuries. French intellectual influence, Voltaire, Diderot, Rousseau, and other French philosophers developing political theories that will inspire American independence, democratic revolutions, and modern governmental systems worldwide. French artistic influence, classical architectural principles, formal garden design, decorative arts, fashion, and lifestyle concepts that define European and eventually global standards for cultural sophistication and social refinement. Most profoundly, French political influence through administrative innovations, legal system development, and governmental organization techniques that prove more effective than traditional European methods and are therefore adopted voluntarily by societies seeking improved political functionality. By 1700, French cultural influence has become so extensive that European civilization is fundamentally French civilization with local variations rather than distinct national cultures with French elements. The absolute monarchy perfection. But Louis XIV's ultimate achievement is perfecting absolute monarchy as a governmental system that combines unlimited royal authority with voluntary popular support through cultural achievement rather than political oppression. By 1700, Louis XIV rules France with authority more complete than any European king in history, but through methods that make royal power feel natural, legitimate, and beneficial rather than tyrannical or oppressive. Picture the political psychology. French subjects support absolute royal authority because royal cultural achievement makes France the most admired, most sophisticated, most powerful kingdom in Europe. Royal magnificence becomes source of national pride rather than economic burden. Louis XIV's political genius, making royal power serve national cultural achievement rather than personal luxury, so that royal authority and national prosperity reinforce each other through international cultural influence. French subjects benefit from royal absolutism because French cultural dominance creates economic opportunities, international respect, and civilizational pride that wouldn't exist under limited monarchy or republican government. The Sun King demonstrates that absolute power can create absolute beauty, absolute cultural achievement, and absolute international influence that benefits entire society rather than just royal family. By 1700, other European kingdoms are trying to imitate French absolute monarchy, not because they want royal tyranny, but because French absolute monarchy produces better results than their traditional governmental systems. Louis XIV proves that absolute authority, properly exercised through cultural vision rather than political oppression, can create governmental efficiency, international influence, and civilizational achievement, exceeding anything achieved through power sharing or democratic methods. The eternal legacy. Standing in Versailles today, you can still walk through the Hall of Mirrors where Louis XIV received European diplomats who came to acknowledge French cultural supremacy. You can stroll through gardens where the Sun King demonstrated royal power to transform nature itself according to human vision. But in 1690, this wasn't historical monument. It was living proof that human authority, unlimited by political constraints and guided by cultural ambition, can create beauty and achievement that transcends individual lifetime to influence civilization permanently. Imagine one final moment. Picture yourself in the Hall of Mirrors during a diplomatic reception in 1690. European ambassadors in elaborate court dress wait for audience with Louis XIV, while reflecting endlessly in mirrors that multiply French magnificence into infinity. Sunlight from formal gardens streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating artistic achievement that exceeds anything their own kingdoms have produced. Louis XIV teaches the most sophisticated lesson in political history. Ultimate power comes not from controlling what people must do, but from controlling what people want to become. Not from forcing submission, but from making submission seem like cultural advancement. But Versailles also demonstrates the eternal tension between individual greatness and systemic sustainability. Louis XIV's achievements were so dependent on his personal vision and unlimited resources that they couldn't survive political changes, economic pressures, or cultural evolution. The absolute monarchy that seemed to perfect royal authority became the system that made royal authority unsustainable when economic crisis, military defeat, and cultural change made royal magnificence seem oppressive rather than inspiring. Yet Louis XIV's cultural influence transcends his political system. French language, French artistic standards, French architectural principles, French governmental innovations continue to influence world civilization centuries after absolute monarchy ended. The Sun King's deepest legacy isn't political but cultural, proof that human creativity, unlimited by constraints and guided by vision, can create achievement that outlasts the political systems that make it possible. Every generation faces Louis XIV's choice, whether to use authority for personal advantage or cultural achievement, whether to seek power through oppression or attraction, whether to create beauty that inspires voluntary cooperation or force that generates inevitable resistance. That's all for our journey through Versailles, from wilderness transformation to absolute power perfection to eternal cultural influence. If there's another moment when individual vision created civilizational change, another place where unlimited authority produced unlimited beauty, another story about how political power can serve cultural achievement, let me know in the comments. Because the real lesson of the Sun King isn't that absolute monarchy works better than other governmental systems. It's that human achievement reaches its peak when authority serves vision rather than when vision serves authority. The Sun King set, his cultural sun never will.